You want me to start us off with the intro?
Hey, aloha, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to our weekly marketing jam session. I just just surprised Nick right as he's going live. Like, why don't you do the intro? Oh, nothing like springing it on you at the last minute, right?
I wasn't prepared.
Well, awesome. We're super excited. You guys are all here. These shows have turned out to be, man, a ton of fun for Nick and I. We love getting on here and just talking about local marketing, what's going on in the shark community, what's happening out there in the world. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. It's been kind of overcast and rainy today, so I have that kind of feeling. I don't know, I got to get over that.
Yeah, it's been interesting here. I mean, very gray and rainy and wet days for the last couple of days. So we're getting the real tropical effect here in Maui.
Yeah, that brings up something good. Maybe you guys can put in the comments, like, how do you get past those days when you just feel, kind of, I don't know if the word is glum, but just, I know a lot of being in business and being an entrepreneur, right, is just staying motivated, right, and continuing to do the things that get kind of boring as you continue to do them, right?
Mark says vodka.
Yeah, vodka. Good plan.
We're talking about staying motivated, not staying warm.
Yeah, Cheryl said gin. Yeah, John said brain fog. Yeah, kind of like that brain fog. I know I have to set up a lot of little things to just keep me moving, right? Like I have to get into a routine and then just stick to my routine.
Yeah, I think I love the routine, I love having routines. The weird thing about routines is when you really hit them every single day for a long time, and you reach a plateau. And then you just, you coast at that plateau for a long time. So, what that looks like for me is, I hit my routines, I'm doing well, I see a lot of progress in all the areas of everything that I'm doing, and then I start to not see as much progress, but I'm still hitting the routine, so I really feel like I'm busy. I feel like I'm doing everything right, but because I've made progress, the bar has actually moved. The progress that I'm doing from that existing routine no longer happens. And it's because I've improved. It's actually a really good thing. The difficult part is having the mental motivation to break past that and start to do or take things even further. Because for me, it's difficult to set that original routine, get to that point, and just start getting good at that, right? Like that was a lot of work. And in my mind, it is always like, if I could only get there and start that routine, then I'd be good. I didn't think that I'd ever have to go past that, right? I didn't think that I'd have to even take it further. But that's really what just, starts to happen by, setting a goal and hitting a routine and making progress. Like eventually you just have to run a little further, and realizing that and pulling it back in and saying like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything right now. I need to actually step it up a notch. How can I do that? That's the difficult part, and then how do you break that routine you're in and bring in the new variable of trying to improve even further? And for me, what that looks like is just, it's baby steps. I'm not able to change a lot at once. I have to do some things slowly. And for business, whether that's, making a couple of extra things on my to-do list every single day, like more and over and above outside of my regular routine. And I just, no matter what, make sure I hit those additional things as well. Then I get in the routine of kind of, swinging the bat with the donut with the weight on it, right? It's just a little heavier. Eventually become accustomed to doing all those extra things, and then I just do it again. But it takes discipline. It's not always fun.
You use the D word.
The D word?
Discipline.
Discipline.
Yeah, well, you know what they say about coasting. If you're coasting, you got to be going downhill, right? Right? When you coast, you're going downhill. So coasting's not good. I know. Yeah, for me, it's about constantly reevaluating those things, right? And seeing like, okay, where am I on track? What are the things? And like you talked about, what I find sometimes is like you feel like you're busy because all this stuff is happening, especially when you're running a business, right? There is a fire, something that needs to be dealt with now. It seems like every day, multiple times a day, right? And it's really easy to get distracted by those things and lose focus on what your main priorities are, right? And it's interesting because I don't know. Have you ever heard the term Operation Money Suck?
I've heard that. I can take a guess at what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's this thing from Gary Halbert, who, for those of you that don't know, Gary Halbert was a copywriter and was considered one of the best copywriters ever. And he made a bunch of money in direct mail. And so one of his kind of like proteges tells this story about how they had this meeting scheduled, and they were going to write some copy and meet with clients and do some things. And when this guy shows up to Gary's office, it's like he gets in his office, and all of a sudden, like, 2 secretaries burst through the door. The printer's broken. It needs to be, and there's letters that need to go out right now. Like he gets a message, the landlord is on the way up because there's a problem with the lease. Like there's somebody on the phone that's aggravated about something that he needs to talk to right now. And so the guy who was there for the meeting was like getting his stuff together because he's like, well, we're not going to have this meeting. Like this is chaos, And Gary Halbert like puts his hand up and like, hushes everybody, and he like escorts the secretaries out, and he closes the door and he locks it, and he turns around and he says, okay, let's get going on what we're doing. And the guy's like, what? Like, what about all this stuff, And Gary's like, Operation Money Suck. He's like, our job is to bring in the money, and that's what we're going to do. Like all that other stuff needs to wait because we're responsible. And what I found really interesting about that is like, he's right. Like when your job is to bring in the money, like you have to stay focused on those tasks. And if you don't, it's not really just about losing once, you actually lose twice, right? Because one, you're doing something, you're diverting your attention from bringing in money, right? And then the other part of that is nobody else is picking up that slack. So, he was making the point that most successful people really stay focused on that. They know what their priority is, right? Like we need to bring in the cash, and how that applies to running a digital agency and starting a business is the same thing. We are always harping on the revenue producing activities, right? Like how do we, what are those activities and are we doing those? And it's easy to get sidetracked. And maybe that's part of what I'm feeling today is because it's like we've had a lot of stuff going on and we've had to have our attention a lot of different places. And maybe that's why I'm feeling that way, because I know that there's that feeling in the back that like, oh, if we're doing those things, then we're not doing the things that are gonna generate the cash flow. And so, yeah, really, I thought that was a great term and a great thing to keep in mind that like, hey, that's your job, right? And if that's your job, you have to make sure that you're continuing to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. And it raises a question for me to ask everybody that's watching. But for most people, I know you're in a different time zone than us. For Tom and I, this question could be motivating because it's still 10 a.m. But for most people,
yeah.
But the question is, what have you done today to, move the needle in your business? To do, have you done anything revenue producing in your business today? What was it? And if you haven't, why haven't you? Maybe could you have, and why didn't you? You know, I think that's a good question to ask yourself periodically, probably for the day to day. And I ask myself that question a lot too, because like Tom said, we've got a lot of stuff going on, sometimes very overwhelming. And if, I don't know, I'm kind of lucky in the sense where like, if I don't feel like I did what I need to do, like I'll burn the midnight oil to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's the other part of running a business, right? Is you get things done. Well, I was going to talk about that a little bit in the section on the books I'm reading, because I think it's important there. Somebody asked about the long sleeves. It is a little chilly here, so that's why I had the long sleeves on. It was all rainy. They were like, "What, are you cold?"
Tom's trying to simulate East Coast weather in his office, so he cranked up the AC.
I was trying to look to see what anyway. Yeah, but I think that's, super important to keep that stuff in mind, right? And knowing, like, and sometimes the thing that you need to be doing may not be directly, like, it may not be reaching out to clients. Like, you have to look at, okay, well, what are all the steps that are going to bring the money in, right? Like, if you don't have a list of potential people to reach out to, that's an issue, right? So putting that list together could be the first step in your Operation Money Suck, right? Like, let's make that prospecting list of people I want to start reaching out to. Or if you're in a situation where it's like, well, where are you going to send them after you reach out to them? Like, then you're going to need that in place, right? So those are a lot. I see, somebody said my bookshelves need help.
We actually have some good shout outs that came through from that question. I mean, Cheryl went to 2 networking events and contacted 10 businesses.
That's awesome, Cheryl. Way to go, man.
Good job, Cheryl. 2 networking events in one day. That's like, whew.
That's hard to digest for Nick.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I can go to 1, maybe. Mentally, it's networking events are not my strong suit. I'll do it, but I have to find other ways, to play to my skill set. But they're really powerful. Tom, networking event master. Nick, not so much.
Yeah, I like going to networking events and doing that kind of stuff. So, yeah, those bookshelves came with the place, so I haven't replaced them yet. But they're a good start.
Mark said began the fulfillment that was the outcome of a client meeting yesterday. Good job, Mark.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I always see Mark doing stuff. That's what I like about Mark, is he's always got something going on.
Well, and that's really the key, right? Action, action, action. Like, you have to be assimilating knowledge and taking action on that knowledge and then adjusting as you go, right? And I think also, another part of dealing with that kind of brain fog is just really cementing in your brain that, like, you're going to do whatever's necessary to succeed. Like, I know a lot of days that really, keeps me moving forward. Like, this is what I signed up for, right? So a lot of people, they get into something and they figure out it's going to require a little bit of effort and they just give up, right? I don't want to be one of those kinds of people. Like, I want to keep moving forward. Some days, like you said, Nick, it feels like I'm moving at a snail's pace. But I also remember, like when you're looking at a graph, right? If you look at a very short amount of time, the line can almost look straight. But as that extends out over a long period of time, you start to see the arc up, right? So sometimes when I'm in the moment of what's going on, I feel like I'm not going anywhere. But when I look back on where I was, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, all of a sudden that line is a pretty, that's a pretty steep curve. And so that keeps me motivated too, remembering that, and keeping clear on what it is I'm trying to, what I'm doing this for, the lifestyle that I want, and how doing these things now are going to help move me in that direction. I also saw another thing that I thought was pretty good. A guy was talking about, he doesn't really do because he didn't really do like resolutions, but one thing he does every year is like on January the 15th, he writes a letter to himself for the same date in the following year. So like right now, what is today? January 17th. So you'd write a letter for January 17th, 2021. And he writes the letter like he's writing it on that day. And in the letter, he talks about where he's at, business wise, personal wise, what's going on in his life, like what things around him look like on that day. And, I think there's some power in that, like on the subconscious level to keep you kind of moving forward. And then also it gives you something that you can go back and review on those days that you're not really, feeling up to par. You can go back and look at that letter and be like, oh, I need to get cracking on this. Right.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because 2 years ago on Christmas Eve, I couldn't sleep. And so I went out in the living room and I was like kind of just sitting there next to the Christmas tree, with the lights on, waiting for Santa, eating all his cookies. No, I was sitting there kind of reflecting, on the year, because it is kind of, we have the new year coming up right around that time. And, for me, like, I feel like, that's that kind of milestone in the year where, like, separate old from new. And I started to kind of journal a little bit as like to where I was at, what I was feeling, what things looked like, similar to exactly what you were talking about. And throughout that year, I remember doing that, like, and I kept reminding myself, like, I can't wait till next year because I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to review what I wrote. And I was like, it actually had some sort of excitement built up around it to like be able to reflect back and look at it and know what the progress was. So I didn't write a letter, but I did similar things. Like I made like bullet points and line items and, like revenue goals and things like that. And I did it again this year, and it was a really cool thing. Like you said, to see the progress, because it really, I think how it originally started was that first time I was sitting there and I'm like, how far along ahead am I compared to last year? I have no way to, I have some things that I can use to measure, but like my mindset, my state of mind, where was I a year ago? I don't remember that. And I know that I'm further ahead, but I need to do something to, measure by. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's also too, the thing about that letter is it's not about, like when you go to review it, it's not about like whether you hit the goals or not. Because a lot of times, like, I don't know, I have some pretty ambitious goals, and you think, this is just outrageously crazy, but you write it down anyway, and maybe you don't hit the goal, but you like what you did accomplish is pretty good, even if you don't hit the exact goal. So yeah, I was thinking about doing that after I read that yesterday, and I was like, I should do that. Yeah, I see Walter said, here, let me put this up here. He said, did you both start as a solopreneur? And if so, what was the biggest takeaway? Nick, why don't you go first? I can go first if you want to think.
So yeah, yes, we did. My biggest takeaway from that, honestly, is to get to a point where you're not being a solopreneur. Like, I tried to do everything myself for way too long, and I don't think you need to do that anymore. I think that, with technology and, the age of information that we're in now, where you have all of these things that you can do to bring in other people to help you, like being a solopreneur, like in the sense of just doing everything yourself, I think you don't really need to do that even at the beginning levels anymore, at least in our space with what we're doing, because you can have.
I don't want to do that.
Huh?
I said, honestly, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. But that's my takeaway, right? Like Walter, I would say, like, you don't need to do that anymore. And if that's something that you are doing, I would highly recommend you start looking at ways to bring in other people to help you, even not like on a, like a salary type basis, but on like an arrangement type basis. Like find, people that are killer at running ads online, and network with them and talk to them and see how maybe you can meet at some point to share some work together, or split some work, or split the difference of the workload and make things easier on yourself. And yeah, so that's my key takeaway: not trying to do everything myself from early on, because you don't need to.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was the action, right? Like the ready, fire, aim type of mentality when you get started. Like you just have to put things out there. You have to do things. You have to push. Like when something is standing still, it takes a lot more effort to get it going than to keep it moving, right? And so I know for a long time, like I wasn't clear. I mean, I knew what the revenue producing activities were, but I would just get busy doing other things and not do those things because it was easy to procrastinate on those things and feel like I was busy, right? So when I finally made that decision of like, okay, this is about getting clients and bringing in, just like we talked about, bringing in the cash flow, that was a huge shift for me. And then realizing that you just do whatever's necessary to make that happen. Like, I'm at, like if you had a deadline with a client tomorrow and it was at 8 a.m. and at 1 a.m. you're working on it and your computer totally crashes and it's gone, you can't get it back. Like, what do you do, right? Like most people would email the client, start apologizing, I can't make it. But like what real pros do is they would get on the phone and try to figure out a place they could get a computer, right? But they wouldn't spend all night doing that. They would do that until they realized that was a dead end. And then they would start doing whatever they could to meet the deadline, like whatever that is, writing it out on paper, like mapping out the plan so that first thing in the morning when they could get to a computer, either at a business center, at a hotel, at a library, like they would be there to finish that project and meet that deadline, right? That attitude of you just got to do whatever it takes. Like, and there are going to be days when it it seems overwhelming, but you just push through those, right? And you just continue to move forward and make your deadlines and do that kind of stuff. So that was probably the biggest takeaway for me, was just getting, and that has been a slow development process for me. And I'm still getting better and better, right? Like I used to always think that there was a difference between high performers and me. Like I wasn't built to do those things. Like I would see people that were just doing, like they were just crushing it. And I would think, God, I could never do that. And the reality is I can do that. You just have to do it, right? You just have to do it. It sounds so simple. And you tell people that and they're like, and then they don't do it, right? So, the biggest thing I see in our space is that with prospecting, right? And, you can always tell who's really serious because a person will email me and be like, hey, Tom, I need money now. What do you recommend I do? And then you'll tell them something that you did that worked for you, right? That probably will work for them. And then their immediate response will be some reason why they can't do that. Like, oh, but I don't want to go talk to people face to face, or I don't they're not willing to do whatever it takes to make that thing happen. Right. And until you can shift your mindset that way, until you can, bring yourself into that, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. I mean, I know it was for me.
Yeah. Speaking of ups and downs, Ron Cunningham just got kicked out of a sales webinar.
Oh.
Good job, Ron. I'm not surprised. Hey, Ron, you've also been sharing some really, really good information in the Facebook group, Ron. So I just wanted to say thank you because I really appreciate all of that. And I know a lot of people in the group do as well. Some really good stuff you've been sharing there. So thanks.
I see Dennis said you guys have services to offer clients. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Like, what services do we offer, Dennis? Is that what you're asking? Oh, thanks for your services. Maybe you can elaborate on that. Here's a shout out to John. John Guild said this morning you visited with an auto glass shop that wants a new website. No decision yet. The old site's hosted by Vistaprint. Yeah. The holdup is about hosting and the domain name. Do they own it? These questions kept us from closing the deal today. That would depend. So, like, I know with Vistaprint, like, they can register their domains through Vistaprint. I don't know what it takes to transfer those out. Like, if they did register it with Vistaprint and they're using the Vistaprint hosting and stuff, they may need to contact Vistaprint and see if they can use a different hosting account, like what it takes to get the domain from them.
One other thing you can do, John, is you can run what's called a whois search. So you can do like a whois search on that domain, and it'll tell you, as long as they don't have privacy enabled, and chances are if they registered it 10 years ago, they probably don't have privacy enabled, but not, I mean, they could. But if you run a whois search on that, it might tell you who it's registered to. It'll give you like the hosting. So say it's at Vistaprint, then it'll say Vistaprint. If it's at GoDaddy, it'll say GoDaddy. And it might even give you an email address as to who it's registered under and who the registrar is. So you could, like, let's say the company had somebody else do it at some point, like another web designer or marketing company. His email could be there because he registered the domain. So you'd be able to contact him there and say, hey, I'm John. I'm working with, this company, and we're looking to, take over the site or buy the domain or transfer the domain or whatever it is that you want to do. And at least that way you have a way to contact the person that has the keys to it. And let me, I'm not going to get too off on a tangent, but I'll post in the comments like what I mean by a whois search.
Yeah, you can, if you just put whois search in a Google search bar, you'll find a lot of sites that do that.
Yeah.
I think one is who.is. There's other ones, whois.net. There's a lot of ones out there.
That's where you want to go. Whois.net, and just type in the domain and see what information comes back.
Yeah, and that, by the way, also too, if you're prospecting and you can't find somebody's email address, that's a little trick that you can use sometimes to find their real contact email address. Because if they don't have privacy enabled, and a lot of like service businesses and non-technically oriented people don't, so you can run their domain through a whois, and sometimes you get lucky. It doesn't work all the time. A lot of them have whois enabled these days, but sometimes you get lucky and there'll be an email address attached to the person who registered the domain, and it's usually one that they check. So yeah, I see Johnny put in the chat too a link on the article about how to transfer your domain away from Vistaprint. Yeah, and I see Ron said he just closed a small deal with Alignable. That was a call an hour ago. Nice, Ron.
Wow, Ron. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk to you a little more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Cheryl, you're right. Hunter.io is also good for email addresses. We actually talk about that tool in our email prospecting blitz course. Is a tool we use.
We actually, yeah, and we also integrate that tool with some of our software, like
to
use like GMB Gunner. So the way that we pull email addresses is that we've integrated Hunter.io's API.
Yeah, that's a good one. I know, Nick, here real quick. I know didn't we have a question? And well, there was a question in one of the Facebook groups that we wanted to touch on about, somebody was asking about logos, where we, where you can get logos done. We wanted to touch on about. Oh, I was getting some feedback. Sorry. So anyway, so I thought maybe we could share a couple of resources for that. So I know one that I use a lot is called logonerds.com, and it's just logonerds.com. I'll put it in the chat here. And they're really good because, so they have a business package that's like $47, and you get 6 different designs and you get unlimited revisions. And they usually do it in 3 to 5 business days for $47, which is crazy inexpensive. And they actually have a coupon code. It's B, the number 10, and then the word off. And if you use that coupon code, you'll get $10 off that. So for $37, you can have 6 different logo designs that you can show a client, and then they can pick one and you get unlimited revisions. So super, I've been really happy with them. Like, they did my Hands Off Media logo. I've used them for a lot of logos over the years, and they've always done nice work. They give you a little form that you fill out in the beginning to get all the information. So that's a good one. What other ones have you used, Nick?
I really like freelancer.com. So one thing that I really like about them is you can do like a contest. So you can hold a contest on freelancer.com where you set a prize. So I usually do somewhere around the $50 to $100 range. And then what happens is everybody that is an actual freelancer on the platform will submit their logos to your contest. So you'll get like 50 of them or 100 of them, a bunch of them, and you can pick the ones that you like best, and you can actually say, hey, this looks good. Can we just change this color, or we can just, you know, add this or add that? But I like that because you have the option to like choose from a huge pool of people that are really good at creating logos or any type of branding. They do a lot of different. I mean, we use the contest for creating like, you know, video intros, YouTube intros, logos, all kinds of stuff. But I like that platform. And then the other one is like, if you're on a real budget, I would just go to like a stock photography website, like Deposit Photos, and just type in, you know, like if you're looking for a roofer logo, right? Like I type in roofer logo, and they'll throw back like really high quality vector logos that you can use and maybe just like add the text of the business name that you're trying to do. I've sold plenty of those when I was just getting started for $500, you know? I mean, so they have really nice stuff there. It's not like the real customized thing that you might be looking for, but you know, if you're on a budget, it's a great way to go.
Yeah, and one thing I'd say about Logo Nerds is they're good if you need something pretty, if you're looking for something really custom, it's probably better to use Nick's suggestion, go to Freelance or 99 Designs. But if it's going to be pretty straightforward logo, yeah, either Deposit Photo, like doing something like that, or Logo Nerds.
Mm-hmm.
What I think also too, somebody had a question in the Facebook group too, I saw, Nick, about chatbots and
oh yeah,
and what's going on with that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
Freelancer.com.
We had our so we just had a chat blast go out from our chatbot that said, let everybody know that Facebook is going to be restricting. This is the message here, actually. Shout out to Paul James, who sent me over this screenshot. He was asking a couple of questions about this, but basically we just sent out this message. A lot of you probably have got it. And we had a couple of questions from people wondering about how Facebook is going to restrict some of their messenger functionality. And basically it's nothing really too crazy to worry about. It's just that their policy is going to change where you can't really like send specific types of notifications through chatbot, through messenger marketing. So one way that, you know, and people really, they either love messenger marketing and chatbots or they hate it. So, you know, to each his own, you know, if you love it, if you hate it, whatever. We use it because a lot of people like it and we want to help cater to those people. A lot of people on this call right now are here because they got a notification on our messenger bot that we were about to go live for our weekly marketing jam, right? So if you're that type of person, you like to be notified when we're about to go live and drop some value, or we have a new release of some important content that we'd like to share with you. We are collecting, or what ManyChat is doing is recommending that you start using SMS as well as the messenger marketing. So they've helped create a flow where we can request through the messenger bot what your phone number is if you want. You don't have to. But if you do and you want to be notified through SMS, because we won't be notifying you this way as much anymore, then just go ahead and hit yes and give them your phone number, or give the bot your phone number, and we'll follow up with you that way. But no real big changes other than that. There were a couple people that were asking if they weren't going to be able to use Messenger anymore and stuff like that, which isn't the case. It's really it's just has to do with the bots. So if you have any questions, like this article right here, I'm going to post it in the chat, is a complete guide on what the update is, how the update is happening, when it's rolling out. And if you're doing this, if you're using messenger marketing for clients, it's worth a read as well. But yeah, that's just kind of our workaround.
Cool. Yeah, and one of the things we like to do on all these shows too is we always do a section on what Nick or I are reading. And just so you guys know, a lot of the books that we talk about here, if you go to offlinesharks.com/books, then there we have them all. We put them up there after we talk about them, so you can see various books we've recommended and different things like that. And the book that I pulled out to talk about today, which really ties into what we were talking about early on, is by a guy named Steven Pressfield, and it's called Turning Pro. And this book, Steven Pressfield is a writer, and he kind of wrote this for, I don't know, his first book was mainly for writers, but this one I think applies to any type of business. And if you haven't read it, I recommend that you go check it out. It's super thin, it's a quick read, but it's all about what we talked about, that developing that mindset and developing the ability to be a pro, to get things done. And he talks a lot in here about how for most people, turning pro is not necessarily an enjoyable process, right? It takes work and effort. And so this book is really good. So if you struggle with that, I recommend you read this anyway, wherever you're at. You'll get a ton of good stuff out of it, but really good book. Steven Pressfield, Turning Pro, really talks about, just developing the attitude of getting things done no matter what, right? And continuing to move forward and what that looks like. So yeah, really good book.
Turning Pro. Yeah, and we'll add it to the link above there.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe why don't we see if we got any other questions in here? And
let's see.
I'm strolling through.
It's funny. I've been getting a lot of, and I just got one, customers that are, I just got a text message that says, "Hey, we're having a problem with our website," and it's not, yeah, and it's not. I'm not building them their website or anything. I do SEO for them. The issue isn't because of something that we did, but I've been getting a lot of those lately. I got a text message at I don't know, 7 o'clock at night from somebody that got my actual cell phone number, and they were like, "Hey, I have a question about my website." Oh my God.
Yeah, I actually just closed a client on a SSL certificate a couple days ago. I had emailed her before the holidays and just told her hey, these are a couple things you might want to look at doing on your site, SSL and and speeding it up. And so I guess she was out of town. So I told her $199 to do the SSL and $399 to do the speed optimization. And she emailed me back when she got back into town and was like, yeah, please do the SSL. The speed thing's just a little much for me right now, but thanks for, and this was her response. Thanks for keeping an eye out for me and making my website better. Like, that's an awesome feeling, right? When you get those clients, it's like, and that whole thing was just, I did her website, or we did her website a long time ago. And I just happened to go out and I was like, oh, she's never put an SSL on here. So I just sent nothing fancy, just like, hey, I was going by your site and I realized you didn't have SSL on there. And like, it's important, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so got that deal. So that's good.
Yeah, we for the new year, my project manager was like, let's do like a New Year sale. And we don't really do that type of thing in my agency, although we should. Like email all of our existing customers or past customers. And we put together like a New Year website SEO refresher for people that we've done work for before, but aren't like actively doing SEO. They need to, we told them in the email that they need to keep their site, at the very least, you should do something each year to keep your SEO relevant. And you want to make sure that your website is safe and secure and backed up. So I think we rolled out like a $399 refresher bundle, and we had a few people take it, which was, it was an easy win, right? Like all those things that it took to deliver those services are like outsourceable and not too crazy. And that's money just, that would normally, it's easily gotten. And for everybody that has customers already, those people are your low-hanging fruit. Like if you have customers or people that you've worked with before, and you were to go to each one of their websites and find 3 or 4 of them that don't have an SSL certificate on their website, or their website loads slow, like go back and sell those services to those people. You'll thank us later.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is an easy pickup win. I see Mike said, what service do you sell that provides you the most income?
I don't think, it's hard to say, Mike, because we sell like big ticket websites, right? Like $8,000 to $10,000 websites. So that's a decent amount of income, but then we get a lot of lifetime value from customers that pay us to do SEO and run ads. I can tell you what services that we like to run the most, which is, it's probably, the recurring stuff, like SEO. Because you can also, I think it's a little more scalable. We just picked up an SEO client for a $2,000 a month retainer. They're in a decent competitive industry. Like they have a real high-end Airbnb penthouse on the beach. And their average customer is like a $20,000 vacation stay, which is like, that's stupid, right? But if they pay us $2,000 a month and we bring in 1 customer over the course of the year, that pays for our marketing. So, we're gonna get them a few customers and they're gonna be happy with our services. But you can, when you have higher ticket customers like that, or they have a high ticket product, you can do $4,000 per month SEO retainers, and you can get even higher when they have, high ticket items, because if you bring in just 1 or 2 customers, it pays, it really pays them, and they get a return on their investment. So I like that about SEO, and running ads. It's just really scalable.
Yeah. Let's see. Mark said, in prospecting, is everyone using only email or email and US mail, postcards? What's most effective? So yeah, Mark, that's a great question. And, again, one of the things we always say is like the most effective prospecting method is whichever one you're going to do consistently. Right. And I think every type of prospecting method comes with pros and cons. So email, which most people think of as like the holy grail, right? Like, cause it's low cost. You just send out emails and people respond. That's why a lot of people like email. The thing is, because it's a low cost thing to do, everybody does it, right? And as you probably know from your personal experience, sorting through your email inbox is like, can be overwhelming. It's really, really a challenge to get your message noticed. And sometimes the challenge starts right in the beginning. Just finding the email of the person you need to contact can be a challenge, right? So, that's why Nick and I always talk about, we don't really do a lot of huge email blasts. Like we don't send thousands of emails out. Like we try to develop a list of, 50 people that we've done a little bit of research on so that we're able to customize our messages and not make it seem like it's just this big cookie cutter thing we're sending out. Right. But now, so that's email. Direct mail, I think, is an area that most people just overlook and they're really missing the boat. I've had a lot of success with direct mail and bringing clients into my agency, and not necessarily postcards, but just sending a letter. So, one thing that I like to do again is build a list of 25 to 50 businesses that I would like to, that I think would be a good fit for what I'm offering, whatever service that is. And then I'll do a little research on them. Maybe one of the tricks that I use a lot is to go through all the local magazines and find people that are running ads, and I'll cut their ad out or cut their ad out of the yellow pages. People still advertise in the yellow pages, believe it or not. And I'll attach that to the letter and then send them a letter that, like, the outside of the envelope is hand addressed. It's got a real stamp, and it looks like a personal letter. Like I just have my return address in the corner, no company, anything. Right. And people just don't get letters in today's day and age. So doing it that way will usually get it opened. And if you keep your letter, to one page, you have a real good chance that they'll read it. I think a lot better chance of getting your message read than if you send it via email. So I'll do that, right? Send that letter out, encouraging them to call me to get more information, and then follow up with either a call to them saying like, hey, did you get I sent a letter. I just want to make sure you got it. And then following up with an email. So, that's another part of that process, is not thinking about prospecting as a one and done thing, like putting them into a system. Like the first thing may be the letter arrives, and then 2 days later I shoot them an email to see if they got the letter. And then 2 days later I call, that process. And then, having a cutoff point of where I feel like, okay, I've reached out to them enough and it's not working out. Right. So Mike, I don't use a mail service. I just do it in-house, and it really doesn't take that long. I mean, once you get it down, maybe an hour or so each week to just, build a list and then get all the letters and all that stuff. So
that's a really ninja trick too, to find the ads that are already running and clip them out and look at them, because, those people, everybody knows on this call, those people that are already spending money on ads likely have more money that they can give you. It's a lot harder to convince people that they need marketing rather than to convince somebody who's already sold on marketing why they should market with you.
Yeah, and you can put in your letter something like, hey, I found this ad you're running. I'm just curious, how's it doing for you? Right? Like, I can bring you some new things that will bring customers in, and there's no, like, you could just shift this money that's not working to what to what I can do for you. So it really doesn't cost you anything, is kind of a way you can position that. So I see John says SSL certificates expire, some in 3 months, others in 1 to 2 years. How can you keep a client current if the web host doesn't do it? So John, you just reach back out to them. Like, I just let them know, like, hey, this expires in a year and it'll need to be resubmitted. After a year, you'll need to get a new one. Which, it's not like something that you have to do every month, but it does give you that reason to reach out to them each year and try to bring them back in and get that deal again.
Yeah, and some hosting providers will, they'll allow you to automatically renew. So
yeah. Jacqueline says, would it be possible to let us know the process for serving high ticket customers? So Jacqueline, I'm not really sure what specifically you're asking about there. serving a client that's paying you, $8,000 to $10,000 to do a website really is not any different from servicing a client that's paying you $1,500. The amount of work and things that you have to do is pretty much the same, right? Really, like when you're looking at getting into those higher ticket clients, it's one, just a matter of being able to show the value you bring and that you're worth those fees, and then sticking to your fees, right? And just being willing to let all those $1,500, $2,500 websites go because you're holding out for the higher priced projects. But the work itself is pretty much the same. Wouldn't you agree, Nick? It's not really that much different.
I would say it's not that much different. Some websites require, like if people are looking for, really custom functionality, like they need a members portal or they need some sort of, it needs to do something out of the ordinary. But I'm with you. Like, a lot of the websites that we sell for the higher price point is, they are around the same amount of work. And especially if you're outsourcing the website, right? Like, since we outsource a lot, like it's definitely the same amount of work because we're just engaging somebody else to do the work for us. So if you think about it that way, yes, definitely. But Jacqueline, I think Jacqueline, you benefit a lot of, and I think you are already going through the Shark Alliance and the path to 6 figures. And I think that you would see a lot of the case study, the in the trenches case studies that we have in there. I think that you would benefit a lot from that because it really would kind of, peel back the curtain a bit on seeing the pricing and how we position it, hearing how we talk to clients over those sales calls or seeing how we discuss the sale through email. I think that will give you a better understanding of how we're, positioning and pricing. And yeah, I think that'll help you.
Yeah. It says, hey, Tom, do you add people whom you snail mailed into your AGM page and recontact them for your premium effort? Sometimes I add them to my AGM site first and then snail mail them, right? So add them in and then send them a letter, letting them know about the community site and what's going on there. But you can do it either way. But any reason you can have for contacting somebody is good, right? Jacqueline said, no, Nick, you were talking about ensuring he got clients for his high ticket Airbnb. I think what you were talking about there was running ads for them, right?
Oh, well, yeah. So I set the expectation for this client really low. And I do that with most services, but most importantly with SEO. Like when you first start selling SEO, you want people to think that you're going to guarantee that they get a lot of customers through ranking them high on Google. That happens, but I don't make promises for that to happen. What I promise them is that we're going to do everything in our power to follow Google's best practices and implement things that are going to promote their visibility in search. So when clients and customers do come in, that's kind of like icing on the cake, right? If you really under promise and over deliver, you're not going to be setting yourself up to be subject of a pissed off customer, right? Like if you set their expectation very low and then you do really well, they're going to be really happy. But if you do very low, like they were expecting that, right? So it's important to do that. You don't want to be, setting the expectation very high on yourself because then you're going to be stressed out like crazy. So with this customer, I let them know, and a lot of our customers are we're really narrowing them down and cherry picking them. Like we're not taking customers that are going to be pain, like actually Jason just said from his experience, low ticket clients are more work. Now that being said, if you're just getting started, you should take the low ticket clients. You need the exposure, you need the portfolio, you need to get some understanding on how it all works. But as you grow and scale, you might find that some of the lower ticket clients are more work, and you'll be more selective about who you work with as you are able to expand your skill set and your portfolio. You'll be able to be more selective, and you can take those bigger clients that you can have a good relationship with, set the expectation low, but work really hard for it. And, they're not going to be always harassing you to deliver on every single, little dollar that they give you, when they see the value of you bringing their presence as a whole up to, Google, and how that can bring in more leads and customers.
Yeah. Paul said, do you outsource SEO? Yes. I actually saw Barbara was on here earlier. Barbara's in our current private coaching class, where that's exactly what we're showing people how to do. We're showing them how to build a team, how to start to build relationships and get people that you can have do the work without giving them any money up front, right? And we have a process for that we've used to, build the teams in our agencies and the team at Offline Shark. So it's something that we know and we have down. And if you're not trying to figure out how to do that, you should be, no matter where you're at. Like, it's a skill you need to know and you need to be doing, like we mentioned earlier. Yeah, awesome. I don't see any other questions. And that was great. You guys were super interactive on this call. That always makes these so much fun to do. We really, really appreciate you guys taking time to come out and hang with us on this Friday afternoon for you. And remember, we do these every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. So we'll be back here, same Shark channel, same Shark time. And if you have questions, bring them. On these marketing jam sessions, like, we try to bring some stuff to talk about, but it's also really a lot about you guys. So if you have questions about anything in our courses or local marketing, show up here, bring them. We'll answer them. We'll talk about them. Brings a lot of value to not only, brings value to us, but also to you and to the rest of the group. So super excited you guys hung out with us. Nick, any final words?
Yeah, like Tom said, the interaction and the questions really make this thing worth it. If you are, working with clients, and I know a lot of you are, I really feel like, Tom, the level of our community has really started to grow and blossom. Like, I feel like a lot of people, when we started this community, they were really, just getting started. And we've seen a lot of people grow into real deal agency owners, getting clients out there, making money, collecting checks. So the people that are doing that, and I love to see that, and I know Tom loves to see that as well. When you encounter questions and obstacles through your day-to-day with your clients, write them down, put them on a list, and show up to this live with those questions so we can, help you. But yeah, if you do it that way too, you'll always, you'll write down that list and you won't forget those important things that you wanted to ask us.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. We enjoyed hanging out with you. Great session, and we will see you guys later. Aloha, everybody.